Hi, my name is Margaret Doty, and I'm a visual artist and an art instructor, and I live in Lakewood, Washington. I've lived here for over 25 years, and I'm a transplant from Los Angeles. But now I'm beginning to feel like I'm part of this area, which inspires me all the time with its beauty and all nature that's around me. And that is a big inspiration for all my artwork. I have been trained as a printmaker. I got my BFA in printmaking, and that's really the core discipline that I use and most of my art comes from. Over the last years, though, I've been doing a lot of painting, working in textiles. I do a lot of collage and mixed media. And the pieces that I'm going to show you today are from a series of collages I did last year. They're all from 2020, and they were all inspired by different travels. My travels always inspire me. And also, I get a lot of my images from my dream life. I've always been a dreamer. And when I was younger and I used to dream, I would paint my dreams. And I just did that as a healing process. And later on in high school, I came across a tribe or a group of people that were really connected with the Surrealist movement. And that was the first time that I saw people do images that were like the ones I did. And I first identified myself as an artist. So I would say that I tend to paint things from a subjective reality more than an objective reality. And I try to, my goal really in my painting is a process of healing and joy for myself, but also a way to share beauty and things that inspire me. I also use a lot of photography in my work, and I've also started doing a lot of monoprinting, which is a way of just printing one print at a time rather than editions. And I found a lot of freedom and spontaneity in that process. I've been using printmaking in my artwork and also my 2D work, but also in my textiles. The image here was inspired by a trip I took down to Tulum, Mexico a few years ago. And we were out in a boat all in the wetlands there, and there were just flocks and flocks of flamencos. And in my artwork, a lot of times the materials really can be the driving force of the image. And I kind of have my materials lead me in the direction intuitively that I go. And in this piece, the bottom is a kimono fabric of different hues of blue. And then the green fabric is kimono fabric that shows the wetlands. And so those were pieces that I started with, and the image of the larger flamenco. And then the other ones I painted in to represent the flock. And I use a lot of, even though this is collage, it's really mixed media. I use a lot of texture in my work, and the white textures are really to show the feeling of the foam of the waves and the clouds in the sky and just the textures of the environment itself. This piece, I think, is one of my favorite collages. It was done in 2020, and this is a 12-inch by 12-inch. I've really enjoyed using a square format. I started using that last year, and I've really enjoyed it. This is a Nest Builders of the Sea, and it was inspired by, there's a beautiful Nisqually Wildlife Sanctuary not that far from me. And you can walk all along a boardwalk and see the birds and the shoreline, and it's so inspiring. And this was an interesting process. I had this little, I don't know if you can see it, this little stamp, and I usually make my own stamps, but this one I found and I really liked it. And so it usually I cut my own out of linoleum, but this was one I found, so I used for the nests. And then I tried to make the eggs look very translucent by painting on vellum. I used Japanese rice papers, a lot of pastels, linen, decorative papers, and I was really trying to express kind of the whimsy of the ocean and the incredible fragility of the environment, and bring kind of the expression of just wonder to this picture, and the feeling of lightness and clarity, which I was really happy. I think I achieved that. And I've used a lot of oil pastel and different mediums to do this. It's very simple, but for me, it's really powerful and very contemplative. I really like this one a lot. This third one was an interesting process. I liked the result of this, but it was really challenging for me. I had the picture of the black and white photograph of the temple, and then I also had the disc. And the disc is, I think, a piece of a railroad track or something. And I liked the way the disc kind of pulled you into the center, entering the temple. And the challenge was finding the right Buddha. And I was so thrilled when I found this one. And I feel like the object also reflects the shape of the object, matches or mirrors the colors in the Buddha, and also kind of the movement of the ear of the Buddha. Also, there's old vintage Japanese fabrics. And the challenging part was integrating all the pieces together. And I really worked the background. There's layers and layers of rice papers, printed patterns, and texture. And I wanted the texture to kind of show the decomposition of the whole environment, as the Buddha has the decomposition and falling apart of the surface of the Buddha is kind of reflected in the background of the picture. One thing, when I say that the objects I find direct me kind of intuitively, is that these particular pieces that I found were my starting points. And oftentimes I may not know what an object's going to look like. This is my friend, the blue heron. And I met when I was at Nisqually Bird Sanctuary. And when I started this painting, it was in the opposite direction, and it was going to be a little bird with the wetlands. And I painted it, and the bird was so huge that his wings went off the painting. And it was like the bird was saying, this is not the right direction. I need my wings to show. So I covered it with gesso and painted again, and he became the subject. And it was really this amazing process of almost interacting with this bird and how he wanted to show his majesty. And it was such a fun process, but it was totally unexpected. And I oftentimes find in my work that it's the process that I love. It's a process of healing and discovery. And I think a lot of printmakers, if you don't love the process, you're not going to do it, because it can be quite laborious. This is an example. I found this wooden block. They're made in India, and I've sourced some of those. And what I've done is I've printed on fabric. You can see. And sometimes I may have a purpose for this. I do now. It's going to be in a textile hanging. But other times I'll just make something like this. I learned Sapori dyeing, and I made these fabrics, and I love this, but I made it to learn the process and to enjoy it. But this will come later. I don't know when or where, but I'll have it at the right moment. And so I've really enjoyed my Zoom studio classes. They've been really rewarding. I've learned a lot from my students. And even though it's not like being in the studio, it's kind of like the next best thing. So thank you. And I hope you enjoyed sharing this with me.